Yeah,
and so I'm just trying to be honest here. I mean, it's changed a little bit.
No, yeah, it sure has, and you do have to recruit your team each year.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, once again, and the good experience. You know, I mean, you got to make sure those kids like you. You got to make sure they're having a good college experience. You know, success on the football field also weighs into that, and so, you know, hold those kids around. They gotta enjoy where they're at.
Step into the Fieldhouse, your front row seat to legendary victories and untold stories. Hey, I'm your host, Lance Lunner, breaking down sports from the inside out, along with co-host Jimmy Lackey. It's more than just a game. It's the Fieldhouse Podcast. Hey, welcome into the Fieldhouse Podcast. We're a production of the Kids Inc. Sports Network. I'm your co-host, Lance Lunner. We got Jimmy Lack here, CEO. Just opened up Hereford yesterday. I saw you on TV, man. What was that about?
We had the official naming of the ballpark, the John Bunch Complex. John was very instrumental in youth sports in Hereford way back in the day. It was a fun day yesterday.
Looks great out
there. Our
there.
mayor's father-in-law, and so Kevin's dad, and just most humble people you could be around. It was a good day.
Yeah.
A great day.
Hey, we're here for Podcast 21. We can't thank you enough for tuning in, listening in, spreading it across social media. We're having a lot of fun doing this, and we got a big one in today. Jimmy, we've got Josh Lynn. Played his high school ball at Eunice, New Mexico. Played his college ball at Eastern, New Mexico. And then his head coaching jobs have been New Mexico Military Institute, NIMI, ENMU, Nebraska Kearney, and now he is the head coach of the Buffaloes at West Texas A&M in his second year. Buffs are 1-1. Get that 2024 home opener Saturday at 7 at Bain Schaefer Buffalo Stadium against Western Colorado. Let's welcome into the Fieldhouse Podcast, Josh Lynn. Josh, what's the best thing that happened to you today?
Oh, the best thing that happened to me? Shoot, man, I woke up and had a cup of coffee, and then probably taking my kids to school. I mean, that's always fun. We always try to put on a song that gets us going in the morning, and you know, the short drive there, we try to rock out a little bit.
I like that a lot.
That's awesome.
Is there a conversation at all with young ones?
I try to fire them up. My little girl, she's a sixth grader now, so she just rolls her eyes. My third grader though, he's all into it, man. He's doing the fist pump. He gets, you know, we'll get going in the morning.
I love that. That's just great. So, hey, first question out of the box before we talk about what's going on WT. Are home openers each year a little bit different, a little bit special?
Absolutely, man. I just, you know, of course, that first one last year it's special just because it's my first one at Bain Schaefer. However, you know, as we move along here and we get going and we start putting the product together that we want to put together, you know, it's a lot more special. And there's not a better place to play than in that stadium.
Yeah,
I mean, in the Division II world, with the way things go and the excitement the excitement that our staff creates, you know, the football that's being played in there, there's nothing better than playing in Bain Schaefer Stadium. So yeah, it's, as we go along here, it's nice, but it's always nice to play in that stadium. It's a beautiful facility, and you know, there's always good energy, and you know, there's always pretty good football being played in there as well.
Yeah, they did an amazing job at that stadium. What do you think, Jimmy?
Well, I can go back to, you know, I was a Kimbrough guy. Coach Carthel and I, we've talked a little bit about this. But I texted Michael McBroom at halftime of the first ball game in the new stadium, and I was just basically just bowing to him. Saying, great job, incredible. This is our new home. Congratulations.
Yeah. Coach Lynn, even smaller Division I's, that place just rocks. But the seating, they just did it right. You know what I mean?
Yep.
There's not a bad seat.
No.
We get that cliche, but there really isn't there. And that's an energy that comes down on the field.
Yeah, it's an energy. Another thing, too, I mean, you look at that the second deck there, the second level, and, I mean, literally you're sitting right – it feels like you're sitting right on top of the offensive bench, you know, on the offensive sideline. And, you know, it really is. I mean, you can see right on top. It feels like you're right on top of the action, and, you know, that also portrays both ways. I mean, you know, you're right on top of us, but we can also hear the crowd right on top of us, as well as, you know, it works the other way too. The visiting team, you got the student section sitting right on top of them. You know what I'm saying? There's the student, West Texas, the student section sitting right on top of the visiting teams. So it's it's incredible. They did a really good job with it.
Yeah, I love that. I love it. Hey, let me ask you this one first, and then I'll let Jimmy in. But Eunice, New Mexico, what do you remember about playing high school football in that
it's
era.
the best thing ever. I mean, I shouldn't say that. There's a lot of really good football memories in my family. But here's the deal about Unison Mag. It's 2,000 people. It's blue collar. It's oil field. Literally at our practice field on the north end zone, we had a pump jack. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it literally it'd kick on about 4 o'clock every to start pumping. You know what I'm saying? And it was hot. But I tell you what was great is, gosh, Friday night, they'd shut down the town. That little stadium was packed, and it was a very successful program. I mean, out of the 4 years that I played there, I think we played for 3 state championships and won 2. I mean, they traveled well. Everybody wore red, and we were the Cardinals, and everybody wore red on Fridays, and it's just an incredible place, and it was an incredible place to grow up, and you get to do everything. Not just football. We got to play basketball, play a little baseball, and it really was. You talk about the Friday night lights of Odessa, and we're kind of down in that area, and it really is, man. It's football and oil field. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of blue collar people that just love their high school football, and it's just an incredible place to grow up and play and go to school and also play high school athletics.
Is that where the coaching bug bit you to become a coach for football, or no?
No, my family's coaching family. My dad is the longtime high school coach, still coaching. Still coaches offensive line. He actually coaches offensive line for my brother, who's the head coach at Roswell High School in Roswell, New Mexico.
Oh, that's cool.
And so, you grow up and you're around it so much. It's just, it's just something that I don't know what else I would do. You know what I'm saying? I could go do other things. Don't get me wrong, but there's something. I hope I don't have to do anything else. Let's just put it that way.
Just innate in you.
Yeah, it's my wife calls it. My wife calls it the drug. You know what I'm saying? She calls it. She calls it the heroin. You know what I'm saying? The competitiveness of putting together a team. Developing young men. It's all competitive, and I just, it's what I was raised around, and that's where the bug got me. I mean, it's what. We're a football family, and I'm very proud of that.
I think the first time we've ever had 3 coaches' kids on the panel.
I think you're right.
That's a good point. Isn't it? Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. I've got to know Josh and his family since I got here, and when he said baseball a while ago, he means that because he's a big baseball fan. He loves to go to Sod Poodles games, and not to socialize. He wants to watch the ball game.
Yeah, I like that. I like that about you.
And so he grew up with that and appreciates athletics and what it all stands for, and good baseball. We have good baseball in Amarillo, and so I'm gonna get this off the table early because. Pam's had a little setback,
right?
And you've tackled that, and y'all been front and center with it. But give us an update. How's she doing?
So we got diagnosed with breast cancer back in let's see here. It was early February, late January, early February, and man, she's been a trooper. Went through chemotherapy. We had a surgery. We went in there and got. And first of all, Texas Oncology. I don't know if they're. But unbelievable place.
Yep.
I will say this is, I think there's always a point and a purpose why you're at a place. I really believe we came to Amarillo, Texas, and part of that was because of Texas Oncology. The doctors there were incredible. I kind of get emotional talking about it.
Yeah.
But we went in there and we did rounds of chemo. We went in there, we had a surgery. They did tests after the surgery, and they got to do blood work and things like that. And we came back. I think it was about 3 weeks ago, and there's no cancer cells. And now we're not out of the woods. We still have to do some stuff here for the next year with injections and things like that. But couldn't have had a better result. And I want to say this too, what I'm talking about is the support from the Canyon community, the support from the West Texas A&M community, the support from the Amarillo community, Randall Junior High, Randall High School, unbelievable support. And once again, you come to a place, and there's always a reason you come to a place. I really believe, with what we just went through and the support that we had, we were at the right place of where we needed to be.
Pam teaches at Randall Junior High.
Yeah. She's a coach too.
Yeah.
So sorry, I kind of got on.
No, I'm the one that brought it up.
But hey, so we got good results, a lot of answered prayers, and makes you want to go win some football games. I'll tell you that.
So here's my point for bringing that up.
Yes, sir.
Because that's first and foremost.
Absolutely.
We're going to talk about football, and I'm going to let Lance tee off with it, but first and foremost comes the family stuff. talking about taking your kids to school and rocking out on the way.
I love that.
I mean, it's all that
love
stuff,
that.
and I'm not so sure I did the greatest job of that as a dad. One of my daughters and I used to stop and get a breakfast burrito every morning. And then there was 2 of them. They had to go to different schools. Then there was 3. And then you become not the cool dad anymore once they get up in age.
Oh,
And,
sure. Right? You start rolling your eyes, right?
Yeah,
You know,
you don't know how to react to that. And so, but those are the things that come first, and now you can talk football.
No, we don't want to talk football quite yet. But Josh, what'd you learn about you and your wife through this? You know, I'm always curious about that.
No, that's great. I mean, it draws you closer. There's no doubt about it, man. Another thing too, you know, we sit here and we talk about football. It's kind of what you just said, Jimmy. I mean, you sit there and you talk about football and you get wrapped up in winning football games and you know, trying to put your best product on the field, which is always a priority, don't get me wrong. But it does make you think about, hey, man, you know, you know, there's a lot more to it than just just the football piece of it, you know what I'm saying? And so it brought us together. You know, the one thing I really appreciated too about it is, you know, at times I had to drive her, you know what I'm saying? And that's time that I have with her that I didn't normally have before. And so it just makes you better. You know, another thing too is, you know, our church, our Catholic church, St. Anne's in Canyon, Texas. I mean, it's, you know, spiritually it kind of draws you in closer too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's we love the honesty, Coach. And you see the enthusiasm Josh brings to everything he does. I always enjoy listening.
Before we dive back into today's episode, let me share a fun fact with you. Did you know that the Fieldhouse Podcast is a production of the Kids Inc. Sports Network? That's right, Kids Inc. isn't just any sports organization. We have been a source for youth sports since 1945. From teaching kids the fundamentals of teamwork to fostering a love for the game, Kids Inc. is where champions are made. And here's the best part. As a listener of the Fieldhouse Podcast, you're a part of the Kids Inc. family too. Head over to kidsinc.org to learn more about current registrations, upcoming sports leagues, and how you can get involved in supporting your local young athletes. But wait, here's the kicker. Have you heard of the Rock Rose Sports Park Home Field Advantage campaign? It's a game changer for our community, aiming to provide state-of-the-art facilities for young athletes to train and compete. So if you believe in the power of sports to shape young lives and want to be a part of something truly special, check out kidsinc.org today and join us in making a difference. Together, let's continue to support the next generation of champions and to ensure that every child has the opportunity to succeed both on and off the field.
Before we get into the Buffs, if you don't mind, Division II is in kind of a crazy world right now because of the, you know, you've heard it over and over, but the NIL and portal. But when these guys you develop them, you have to challenge. The challenge is to keep them at WT, but you're going to have these Division I. And you know, we all grew up, hey, Division I world.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
How has that changed? If you don't mind, because you know the D2 system as well as anybody.
It's changed. You know, and I'll just come out and say it. I think you have to go in and you still have to recruit the high school athlete, and you have to develop them. Okay. Now there's another, and what you usually, you know, normally in a good system leading up to the last, you know, before the last couple of years with the transfer portal, or I should, you know, predominantly last year with the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Is you would develop those kids and you keep those kids in your program, and you know, every once in a while you go get I shouldn't say that. You go get some transfers to kind of sprinkle in, you know, from the junior college ranks, or you'd catch a Division I kid coming back down. But, you know, that doesn't happen anymore. Now the Division I kids will stay and generally either go down to the FCS level or stay on the Division I level if they're good enough, right? So where I'm going with all this is you kind of have to, and I even hate to say it, but it's almost like baseball. You know, where you're developing in your farm club, and then you go out and you get free agents. I mean, that's the way the college football realm has kind of gone, and it's unfortunate that you just can't, you know, that left tackle that you brought in at 6'5", 245 pounds, that's now 295 and, you know, eating nails for breakfast. All right, you know, if somebody comes in Texas A&M, I mean, me as a person, can I tell him not to do that? You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's a great opportunity for that young man. You know, so I think you have to look. It's more to a year-to-year basis now. In regards to you develop your kids, you want to make sure you have a good experience for your young men while they're in your program so they want to stick around. But if somebody leaves, you got to go get another one. And, you know, so a lot of those resources, you've got to be recruiting the transfer portal to help you with that a little bit.
Yeah, so
it's almost like developing a new team every year.
Yeah,
you know, it is.
And
it's maybe not to the extreme of, the NFL or anything like that, but even the Division I's, they'll come out and tell you, I mean, we're preparing for next year. I mean, you can't really, if you look 2 or 3 years down the road with one of those kids, I mean, there's a good chance he may not be there.
Yeah.
And so I'm just trying to be honest here. I mean, it's changed a little bit.
No, yeah, it sure has. And you do have to recruit your team each year.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, once again, and the good experience. I mean, you got to make sure those kids like you. You got to make sure they're having a good college experience. Success on the football field also weighs into that. And so, hold those kids around. They got to enjoy where they're at.
One thing you've done really well, Josh, and Jimmy does it here at Kids Inc. as well, and that's keep a staff together.
Uh-huh.
And I've been very impressed with that. And that's got to be a calming influence for the athletes who come in. Do you think that's important to keep the guys together on your staff?
Absolutely. I've been really, really fortunate. I like my defensive coordinator. We're going on. Gosh, I want to say 13 years together.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
With 2 moves in there. I mean, we went to Nebraska, and now he's back west. I mean, I'm really fortunate in that regards, and he's a great one, Coach Gallus. That's just one example, but the expectation is there. Anytime you bring in a new coach, there's always a learning curve. I mean, if you can hold on, it's just like players, right? If you can hold on to your staff and treat them good, and let them coach, and and give them reins to coach, it's a lot better for everybody.
Yeah.
I'm so stupid when it comes to this anymore. We talk about X's and O's and how that's all. The game's passed me by. I told Lance if I got in a huddle, I wouldn't know where to go.
I don't believe
but
that.
I wouldn't. But I love the team sport aspect of football.
Absolutely.
And
there's nothing like it.
And it's I've been around it so long, especially at the college level, just knowing my buddies back in the day. It's funny how you got the offensive group and the defensive group, and they're their own groups to a large degree. But when it comes game time, they're still all on one. And the way our stadium is set up, you really get a chance where, at least for where I sit, you get a chance to watch that. And it's kind of like, when the bride comes in, everybody's looking at the bride, and then there's those people that are looking up at the groom. I like looking down at the sideline and watching the coaches go straight to their spot when they come off. Those kids go straight to the bench, and that coach is waiting on them. And you see the difference in that coach that screaming, hollering, turns around, walks off from them, and then that other coach that's in their grill and stays there and then slaps them on the leg, pats them on the head, and they're buying in. And that's what I see out of your coaching staff, Josh, is I'm seeing the buy-in. And, man, I'm the farthest one to tell anybody what to think, but it just takes time to build a program.
Sure, absolutely.
And especially when you have a whole new staff, and then you've got a whole bunch of new kiddos. And on top of that, what people don't realize from a college coaching perspective is the babysitting aspect of 18, 19, 20-year-old kids. And I don't mean that in a flip way. I just mean they're away from home for the first time. They've got a tremendous amount of freedom on their hands. And corralling that in, I think that's where athletics does a student well, because they have parameters, they have boundaries, and they have expectations that they have to meet if they want to play, if they want to maintain a scholarship, et cetera, et cetera. And, it's a bigger job than just showing up on Saturdays and playing the game.
Sure.
With that said, the system I like Jimmy's thought there from Josh, if you don't mind, tell us from game 1 last year to here's game 3 this year, how far has that system that you guys have preached hit with the players?
No, it's come a long ways. And from where we were at, let's just bring up this week. We played our first home game against Western Colorado last year, very first game. From where we are from that game to where we are to, we're going to play Western Colorado here Saturday night at home. All right, to where we are now, I mean, there's a significant change, and change for the positive. I can honestly say we're a lot better football program and football team on the field than what we were when we went out there last year at the first game against Western Colorado this year. Now, to relate to that piece, Jimmy, you've got to have the players to do it athletically. All right. But to bank off your point, the most important piece of that is the locker room piece. You look at the offense, you look at the defense, they've got to go into that locker room. They still have to be a team. And so I'm not so sure. I know And I'm not so sure that's the locker room piece isn't the biggest part of that. And obviously the X's and O's and having the guys to execute those X's and O's. I mean, obviously you can't go out there with just anybody, but teams that like each other, teams that come together off the field, and most notably in that locker room, and when they're out of football, that's the teams that are the most successful.
You're 2 games in, played an amazing Mines program. I think they're 5th in the nation this year, but they have back-to-back national championships appearances. So where are we at, Josh?
Yeah,
where are we at coming into week 3?
The one thing about it is, you come off of Mines, all right, and very successful program, all right. Obviously, back-to-back national runners-up, all right. I believe that staff's been there. Part of that staff has been there for close to 10 years, all right. One thing that's nice about Mines is we talk about the transfer portal piece. All right, that doesn't really affect them. I mean, all those kids are engineers.
Yeah.
I tell you what, when you get into the 4th year of engineering school, if you want to transfer, you're doing yourself a disjustice. Let me just tell you that, all right? But, I mean, that's a credit to those guys, right? I mean, they're holding on to them.
Yeah.
And so where I'm going with this is I came off a Saturday night's game, and are they 4 scores better than us? No. And you could see that, all right? Now, do we have some work to do? Absolutely, all right? But you take, from where we were at last year to where we are this year and go play that team last year, I mean, we're not even in the same picture as them.
Yeah, that's
And
cool.
we had our opportunities in that game. There's some things defensively that we didn't get done, especially most notably on 3rd down. All right. Offensively, you go in there and you scheme those guys, and, we should have thrown the ball every down, but we felt like we needed to still try to run the ball. But, I mean, that goes back to us getting them in the right position as coaches. And so, coming out of the Mines game, we got beat, and they beat us. I mean, you walk across the hand and shake their hand, right? But at the end of the day, there was a lot of positives to come out of that. And that game did a heck of a lot more for us than this first game playing Sol Ross, the first week.
With the win.
With the win, yeah. And so, I'm ready for this one. I'm ready for Saturday night because
number 15.
Number 15.
Yeah.
And we're going into Bain Schaefer, and, our guys know now what it takes to go beat one of those top 20 teams. And so, a lot of good came off of that, but I'm really looking forward to this week.
To Josh's point on Mines real quick, I grew up in Colorado, so Josh, they were famous in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Every student who got their diploma that day, walking across the stage, already had a job.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, no doubt.
100%,
right?
Yeah, 100%. You know what I mean? That was their goal. I'm sure they had to work a couple of kids to get those jobs, and nice paying jobs. But yeah, you're right. They're going to stick there. So, hey, we got people listening in. So take us in. What's one thing when we go down to Bain Schaefer Saturday that we can see? Give us a little insight of, okay, in this situation, what's going to happen?
Well, I think when you look at this game moving forward, Western Colorado, their defensive system, they move. I mean, it's not one of those ground and just what I'm saying, they
like jump around.
Well, I mean, seriously, they move every down.
Yeah,
and so we've got to do a good job. Both fronts got to do a good job of offensive fronts got to handle that movement, make sure we get a recognition, in play recognition, in post snap recognition of offensive line post snap. Those D linemen are going to move on you, and so we got to do a good job of getting a body on a body. And then I think we've got to go in there and we got to run the football. And I'm a staple on that. I mean, to get anything going, you've got to establish a running game. And the teams that the games that we've been successful at West Texas A&M, we've ran the football. And so, with that said, we've got to handle their movement. We've got some good backs this year. We need to get those guys the ball, as well as our quarterback. Quarterback can run a little bit. Sean Johnson.
Yeah.
He does a nice job with his legs. But we've got to establish a running game so we can at least get our passing game going, get some one-on-one matchups on the outside.
I know we're on a timeline this morning. First off, I appreciate you being here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we do. Game week, my gosh.
One thing you got to know is one of your players sat right here to help us do one of our first promos for this podcast.
Okay.
Cade Cox, I'm going to give him a little shout-out, his hometown kid from Dumas. But
Dumas.
he's in that Rogers Lead group, and there was 5 of those kiddos from the Rogers Lead group that helped us with the setup of this podcast, and so a little shout-out to Cade.
I like it.
And then the last thing I'm going to say is this. We had a board meeting one day, and it was the day you were hired, and Coach Carthel's on our board. And you know how Donnie and I are very good friends. You know that.
Yep.
But my litmus test from day one was when he came up to me and he said, "Man, I'm so glad they hired the right guy." And I just want our listening audience to know, A, it takes time, but B, when Coach Carthel, who was the pinnacle of our program in modern time,
100%,
gives you that kind of accolade and that kind of show of support, the rest of us need to jump on board. And I was in on day one, and you've lived up to that with me because we've established a personal relationship. But I'm proud for you, and I'll be front and center on Saturday, and can't wait to get them home.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Hey, I've got one more, though. I know you got to get out. But
no, hey, I'm good.
This is way
Fire
cool.
away.
Offensive line.
Yep.
Most coaches kind of go CEO on us, and all the paperwork you do, it's only unimaginable how much you have to go through just not being allowed to actually coach on the field. However, Jimmy, Coach Lynn coaches the O-line. I mean, if you go to a practice, he is running over to the O-line. I love that about you. What went into that decision, and why do you do that? Because a lot of coaches do step back out of actually a position coaching.
Yeah, no, here's the thing. I love offensive linemen, all right? I do.
Why is that?
Well, another thing, too, they're the weirdest. They're the most unselfish group on the field. They're a bunch of teddy bears. They get out there and they get after it. Don't get me wrong, but they gravitate toward each other. They're always fun to be around. Another thing too is you can coach them hard. The good offensive lineman, and every kid's different, I understand, but the good offensive lineman, you can go out there and you can coach them hard, and they just love it. And so, and I'll say this about being the O-line coach: there's a lot of stuff in my job I'd love to just go out there and coach all day.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
But there's stuff with my job that I don't necessarily, like the equipment room, I mean, who wants to do that? You know what I'm saying? And I don't do much of that, but there's some of that stuff I don't like to do. What I do love, though, and I hope, I love going out and coaching offensive linemen every day. It is one of my, all that paperwork you just talked about, some problems, external problems within the team that I have to deal with. I go out there and in those meetings, and that's what I really enjoy.
I can see that.
And and another thing too is we can go crush a buffet together. You know what I'm saying? Or they can. I'm not as good as I once was, but it's. But I just.
That's a video.
That's one of my releases. I love coaching offensive linemen. It's another thing too. No other position. Jim Harbaugh said this the other day. No other position on the field, all right, has to rely on anybody else. All right, everybody has to rely on the offensive lineman, and so there's not a more important group. I mean, that quarterback position is pretty important, but once again, it's not anything without those.
Goes back to everything I've said from day one when we've done this podcast. If you can't block and can't tackle, you're not going to be very good.
No, that's right. And those guys got to be organized, and they got to be all on the same page.
That's why you hear these big-time quarterbacks doing the things they do for their offensive linemen, because they mean it.
Yeah.
Because they're saving their hind end.
Yeah, that's such good stuff, man. I love that. Yeah, you need to do a video of you guys busting a buffet. Okay.
Yeah, that's probably not bad. I don't know.
I
don't want people to get grossed out on TV.
That's the viral. That's the viral part of it. Yeah. So it's going to be Western Colorado. By the way, growing up in Colorado, no disrespect to Western Colorado out there, this is the way it was in the 70s. This place is like a 20-minute drive from Crested Butte, Colorado.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Ski City World. So when I was growing up, Josh, it was called Wasted State because everybody went there from all our high schools.
Sure.
They just flunked out. They just skied all day.
Yep.
No.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a fact. You know what I mean? But that's what we call it. But it's Western Colorado, ranked number 15. This is the second of three top 20 teams. The Buffs are you challenged them with that schedule. So we wish you the best of luck. We cannot thank you enough, Josh, for coming in. Love the insights, especially on game week. It means a lot to Jimmy, and I know how much it means to Jimmy especially.
Sure, I know, and this is fun. I mean, whenever you guys need me, let me know. I mean, another thing, too, get out and support the Buffs. I mean, you're going to see a good game on Saturday night, and we're excited, and we're extremely excited to get back home in front of our home crowd, and, let's get Bane Schaefer rocking. Appreciate you guys.
All right, let's hop out of here. This was the Fieldhouse Podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll see you soon.